The fire was dying. Its flames no longer rose but trembled low to the ground, curling around blackened wood like fading breath. Smoke drifted upward, thin and colorless, carrying with it the scent of pine and ash. The snow around the circle had melted, but already the edges were freezing again, closing in like the night itself. The wolf watched from the edge of the clearing. He had been there since dusk, silent, still, the kind of stillness that belongs only to things born of the wild. His coat, dark with the dampness of melting snow, caught the flicker of light in slow, broken glimmers. His breath came out in pale clouds that disappeared as soon as they met the cold air. The man who had built the fire was gone. The ground held the faintest traces, the imprint of boots, a half-burned stick thrust into the earth, a torn scrap of cloth caught on a branch. But the scent had grown thin now, fading into the wind. The wolf could no longer tell which direction he had gone. The fire cracked once, sharp, sudden, and the wolf flinched, not from fear, but recognition. The sound was familiar. The breaking of wood, the split of heat against silence. It was a sound the forest didn't make by itself. It belonged to the other kind, the kind that built warmth in the middle of cold. The wolf stepped closer. Each paw pressed softly into the snow, the movement careful, patient. The flames leaned toward him as though reaching for life they couldn't take. The smoke curled low, wrapping around his muzzle, before drifting upward again. He blinked, his eyes reflecting what little fire remained. Two faint points of gold in a world of gray. The air smelled of endings. The scent of charred wood mixed with frozen sap, wet fur, and the clean, empty smell of snow about to fall. Somewhere in the distance, a branch cracked under its own weight, and the echo carried through the trees like a whisper that didn't want to be heard. He lowered his head and sniffed the edge of the fire pit. The earth there was soft, still warm in places where the coals glowed faintly beneath the ash. His nose touched the heat, and he drew back, watching the ember fade to black. Behind him, the forest waited. The trees stood motionless, their trunks dark and wet with frost. No wind moved between them. Even the sound of the river, the one that ran beyond the ridge, was gone, frozen under a skin of ice. The wolf turned his head toward that silence. For a long moment, he didn't move. His breath rose and fell, his ears twitching toward small, invisible things, a shift of air, a heartbeat in the ground, the slow collapse of snow from a high branch. Each sound reached him clearly, as though the forest itself had drawn closer to listen. He looked back at the fire. Only one small flame remained, a pale thread dancing in the hollow of a log. It flickered once, twice, then went out. Smoke curled upward, hesitated, and dissolved into the cold. The light was gone. Only the glow beneath the ash remained, beating faintly like the last pulse of something once alive. The wolf sat. The cold crept in immediately, crawling through his fur, along his legs, into his chest. But he didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the dying embers, the only warm color left in the world. He didn't know what the fire had been for. He only knew what it meant when it ended. Somewhere deep within the forest, far beyond the reach of light, an owl called, one long low note that drifted through the dark and vanished. The wolf raised his head listening until the sound was gone, then turned his gaze back to the ashes. The forest around him exhaled, and in that moment, the silence began to grow. The smoke was gone by morning. Only the faintest trace of it clung to the snow. A ghost of warmth pressed into the air. The clearing had changed. The fire was now only a shallow wound in the ground, black and still. Around it, frost had crept back in during the night, sealing the earth beneath a new crust of ice. The wolf moved through it silently. His paws broke the thin shell of frost with each step, leaving soft, round impressions in the pale surface. The air bit at his nose, sharp and metallic, carrying with it the scent of ash and something older, the deep, quiet smell of frozen soil waking beneath the snow. He paused beside the ashes and lowered his head. The scent there was layered. Smoke, sweat, fear, wood, salt. A memory of fire and the one who built it. The human smell lingered like an echo, faint but persistent, woven into the fibers of the earth. The wolf inhaled deeply, searching for direction. There was none. Only the wind, wandering aimlessly through the trees, pulling every scent apart and scattering it into the cold. He looked up. The sky was pale and low, a flat gray ceiling stretching from horizon to horizon. Snow had begun to fall again, slow, patient flakes, drifting sideways in the weak light. Each one melted as it touched his fur, leaving droplets that froze again almost instantly. He turned toward the trees. The forest stood in perfect silence, tall and dark, its edges softened by mist. The trunks were slick with ice, the branches heavy with the weight of snow. Beneath them, the ground was hidden, covered in a white so clean it looked untouched by anything that lived. The wolf stepped forward, leaving the clearing behind. The ash smell faded quickly, replaced by the colder, purer sense of the woods. Pine, bark, stone, the musk of things unseen. His breath came out in small bursts of vapor, the only motion in a world frozen between one heartbeat and the next. He walked without sound, weaving through narrow spaces between trees. Each movement was deliberate, measured, an instinct older than memory. Every few paces he stopped and listened, ears twitching to catch what silence concealed. He heard it, faint, distant, almost hidden, the soft groan of ice shifting deep in the ground, the whisper of snow sliding from a branch, the heartbeat of the forest itself, slow, immense, alive beneath its stillness. He lifted his head and drew in the air again. Somewhere ahead something carried, not scent, not sound, but presence. A movement through the cold, small and warm, far away yet clear as the pulse in his own chest. His eyes narrowed. He began to move faster. The snow thickened as he went, falling heavier now, the flakes larger, softer. They gathered on his back, in his mane, along his tail. The forest swallowed him, branch by branch, shadow by shadow, until the clearing behind him was gone. Erased by wind and snow, the scent of ash disappeared completely, and only the cold earth remained. The wolf pressed on, his breath rising in short clouds, his body moving as though led by something the forest itself remembered. He was no longer searching for fire. He was following what came after it, the silence that always waits once the flame goes out. The forest grew denser as he moved. What light the morning offered could not reach this far. It filtered through the branches in broken lines, falling across the snow like scars of pale fire. The air beneath the trees was colder, heavier, thick with the scent of bark and sleeping moss. The wolf moved slowly now, not from caution but from listening. His ears twitched at every sound, the creak of frozen trunks, the faint sigh of branches shifting under the weight of ice. The snow here was deeper, and each step sank almost to his chest, muffling the sound of his movement. There were no tracks but his own. No birds called, no wind spoke. The world had gone inward, folded into stillness. Even the air seemed to wait for something unnamed. He stopped beside a fallen pine. Its trunk was split, torn open long ago by storm or lightning, the heartwood inside blackened to charcoal. The wolf sniffed the bark, cold, scentless. He stepped over it, paws brushing against dry needles buried beneath snow. They crackled faintly, the sound startling in its smallness. For a moment, he lifted his head and looked upward. Through the web of branches, he could see the sky, gray, endless, without movement. Snowflakes drifted through it, turning as they fell, like ash descending in slow spirals. He blinked. For an instant, it looked like the world itself was burning in reverse. Fire falling from the sky, light turning to silence. He shook the snow from his muzzle and moved on. The deeper he went, the more the forest began to close around him. The trees grew closer, their trunks thick, roots coiled like sleeping serpents beneath the snow. The air was darker now, not black, but the color of distance, where light has forgotten to return. A sound reached him then, faint, low, stretched thin by space. A crack, a thud, a rustle. Something moving far ahead. He froze. His ears turned forward, body tense, tail still. The sound came again, not movement this time, but breathing. Heavy, slow. It stopped, then returned closer. The wolf lowered his head. He stepped quietly between the trees, his paws careful in the snow, leaving no rhythm to follow. Each breath came shallow, steam curling from his nostrils in thin ribbons. The air shifted. The scent reached him a heartbeat later. It was old, not predator, not prey. Something else. Something that had lived long in the forest and carried its silence within. He followed it until the light began to fade. What little brightness there was turned blue, then silver, then nothing. The snow reflected what the sky could no longer give, glowing faintly from within, as though the earth itself held the memory of day. He came upon a hollow, a clearing small and quiet, the snow untouched except for a single track crossing its center. It was deep, heavy, round at the edge, and already filling with new snow. The wolf circled it once, twice, nose low. The scent was faint now, nearly gone, but it was there. Old fur, earth, and rain that had fallen long ago. He sat at the edge of the hollow, still and waiting. The forest behind him had gone completely silent. Above, the first star appeared, a single point of white trembling between the branches. He watched it until the snow began again, until the light vanished, until shadow and sky became the same. Then he stood and walked onward, deeper into the place where even silence had a pulse. The forest ended without warning. The trees thinned, the air opened, and a new kind of silence met him, wide, hollow, and bright. Before him stretched the river, bound in glass. It wound through the land like a vein of pale light, frozen mid-breath beneath a sky heavy with snow. The wolf stood at the edge. His reflection wavered faintly in the ice, a shadow inside a shadow, blurred by frost. The surface was covered in patterns, white veins and faint spirals, shapes like leaves and bones and wings, all carved by the slow patience of cold. He stepped forward, the snow crunching softly beneath his paws. The sound echoed faintly, rolling across the frozen expanse and vanishing into the far shore. He lowered his muzzle and sniffed the ice. It was clean, sharp, scentless, but beneath it came something faint, something that moved. A hum, a vibration too low for the ear, but felt in the chest, in the ground, in the air itself. The wolf pressed his nose closer. Underneath, water still lived. It ran slow and heavy, trapped in a glass prison, whispering against the cold. The sound was not loud. It was the memory of sound, a song half forgotten. It spoke in pulses, soft and rhythmic, like breathing from another world. He closed his eyes and listened. The world above him disappeared. No wind, no trees, no sky. Only the deep murmur of water traveling through darkness, carrying with it the weight of mountains, the taste of time, the memory of rain. He breathed in, and for a moment, his own heartbeat matched it. The snow began again, soft and soundless. Flakes drifted over the ice, erasing his reflection, burying the tracks behind him. The air grew thicker, filled with the scent of wet stone and frozen sap. The wolf opened his eyes. A faint movement flickered beneath the ice. Not light, not shadow, but motion itself, bending and unbending as if something unseen passed beneath the surface. He watched it, still and unblinking. The forest behind him groaned, a tree cracking somewhere far away, its sound carrying like a single note through the air. The river answered with a deep, muffled echo from below, as though the earth itself had replied. The wolf lifted his head. For the first time since the fire went out, the world did not feel empty. He walked along the river's edge, following the slow bend of its frozen path. The ice glimmered faintly in the gray light, mirroring his movement in fractured lines. Beneath every step, the hidden current hummed, steady, tireless, endless. As he walked, the forest began to breathe again, the sound of branches shifting, the faint crackle of frost loosening its grip. Somewhere far off, the cry of a bird, thin, strange, alive. The wolf paused to listen, his ears turning toward the sound. It came once more, then vanished into the wind. He exhaled, and his breath rose in a cloud that drifted across the river, mingling with the slow mist rising from cracks in the ice. The water's song continued beneath it all, soft, patient, eternal. The wind shifted, only slightly, just enough to carry a new scent across the snow. The wolf stopped, His body went still, head lifted, ears forward. The air around him seemed to harden, the faint sound of the river fading until it became part of his heartbeat. He inhaled. The scent was faint, no blood, no threat, but it was alive. He turned toward the trees. The forest across the river stood motionless, its branches thick with frost, its edges blurred by mist. Between the trunks, something moved. Not shape, not sound, just the subtle weight of attention. He waited. The snow fell steadily, softening the world into pale silence. No movement came, but the feeling did not leave. It pressed against him like a breath, like the forest itself was leaning closer, watching. He took one step forward, then another. His paws made no sound. The trees across the ice grew larger, darker. The mist clung low, swirling around their roots. He could see faint paths through them, narrow trails that led nowhere, dissolving into shadow. The air thickened. Each breath tasted of bark, iron, and the faint musk of something that had passed this way not long ago. The wolf's nose twitched, his ears turning toward the faintest sound. A soft crunch, far off, then stillness again. He lowered his head, tail straight, muscles coiled. He was not hunted, not yet. But he was not alone. For a moment, he thought he saw movement, a flicker of shape between the trees, gone as soon as he noticed. Then another, higher this time, no more than a ripple of shadow. The forest was breathing, but unevenly. He stepped onto the frozen river. The ice groaned beneath him, deep and hollow. He paused, waiting for the sound to settle. The river's song murmured beneath, calm and slow, as if unconcerned by the weight above it. The wolf crossed, one paw at a time, his reflection sliding beneath him in broken fragments of light. When he reached the far side, the scent grew stronger. It was animal, wild, heavy, familiar, but not wolf. It carried the scent of earth and moss, the deep musk of something that lived close to the soil, something large and solitary. The forest grew darker as he entered. Snow clung to every branch, the weight bending them low, forming arches of white and black. His fur brushed against them, sending small avalanches of powder to the ground. The sound was too loud, too clear. He stopped again, listening. The silence that followed was too perfect, too controlled. Whatever was there had stopped moving. He turned his head slowly, scanning the distance between the trunks. The air trembled, or maybe it was his own breath. Then, through the mist, he saw them. Two faint glints, pale and far apart. Eyes. They didn't blink. They watched him without movement, without sound, patient and still. He lowered his body slightly, ears flat. The air between them felt alive, thick with the weight of unspoken understanding. He could hear his own breath now, rough in his throat. Then, as quietly as they had appeared, the eyes were gone. The mist folded in, erasing their shape, returning the forest to its slow, endless breathing. The wolf stayed where he was for a long time. He did not move until the snow began to fall heavier, the flakes larger, falling so thick that even his tracks began to vanish beneath them. He turned back toward the river. The ice was already half covered again. The forest behind him seemed untouched, as though nothing had ever stood there, but the scent remained. Faint, deep, like smoke beneath the ground. Something that had seen him, known him, and chosen to remain unseen. The wolf lifted his head toward the sky. The snow melted on his muzzle as he breathed. The wind carried no sound now, only the weight of the forest's gaze. He began to walk again, his shape dissolving slowly into the storm, while unseen eyes followed from the dark, patient as the trees themselves.